So, firstly, welcome everyone to Overcoming Challenges as a Product Owner, featuring our very special guest, OK Menakaya. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. OK is the Senior Product Owner at Clario, and I'm really excited for this conversation. Before we get started, I do just want to first of all apologize. We did have some admin errors on the scheduling for this event. Unfortunately, we did have another event in one of our global offices that collided, hence why we weren't able to start on time. We will be sending this recorded version round to everyone who signed up for the event, so hopefully you'll still get all the insights, just albeit a little bit later than intended. So sincerest apologies for that, but nonetheless, I think this is still going to be a really interesting one, and I'm very excited to welcome OK to the event. So thanks for the time, mate.
Thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to having the conversation with you about being a product owner.
Yeah, no, it's an honor to have you on board, and it's one of the most requested topics we've had, certainly around products, and I think there's a lot of irony in some of the challenges and dealing with that you have. There's a lot of depth to it, so I'm very much looking forward to getting into it. So the first question that I do have off the bat is very much people related. Obviously we're a people-centric organization, and I think people are always at the heart of these kind of building great products or managing projects. So the first question is, how do you ensure that you have the right mix of skills, and experience to meet, project's technical demands? I know that's a loaded question, but start wherever you want.
Yeah, it is a loaded question. I think this, it's in terms of having the best skill, managing team skills and expertise. I think it mostly depends on the organization, because in some organizations view the role of product owner entirely differently. I mean, sometimes even in the same organization, right? Like actually a couple of days ago, because in my company, I think we have about 12 teams and about 8 product owners. So, we what exactly do we as individual product owners do in our team? Because no one, we don't have a clue. So we had this meeting that we're going through, and we just realized that our role is actually totally different from what, each one has a different role, So I think in terms of, making sure that you have the right skills and expertise to ensure a pretty good development of products. I think the most stuff that I do employ most is in terms of having the awareness, having a thoughtful planning, and being able to adapt, because each project sometimes has its own challenges, and it does vary. And for me, the most important thing for me in a team is to make sure that the skills align, and the skills alignment. We also have a very clear role definition. Also, how am I going to distribute the task? And also in terms of skills updates, am I able to, help my team, regularly update their skills, so they know how. It's recently we are going to update to Angular 16 from 14. And that, I'm in a situation where, some folks in my team haven't worked on Angular before, and then I'm, although specifically though, it's not entirely my job, to make sure that, the skill set is there, but it is my job to make sure that we develop a product for our end users, for our stakeholders, So I have to be proactive. I don't have to wait for my, for the VP or, or the R&D lead to I have to have that, that foresight of, knowing that, okay, some of the my team members, developers need to, upscale. They need to spend a couple of days, to get themselves familiar with the Angular version that we are upgrading to. So it's that's where that thoughtful planning, skills comes into place. And also one thing that I also ensure, is rotation and growth opportunities. Have to make sure that each team member has the opportunity to rotate into different products. Like, for example, the product that we are building right now in Clario, so there are teams, there are members of the teams that are familiar with what we are building, with the technology, with the systems, and there are some that have very little knowledge, and there are folks that have no knowledge at all. So I have to make sure that they get paired. Like today during our stand-up, actually, one of the developers, he volunteered to let another developer pair with him to understand what is required. So he got a very great shout out, because we as a team, we have to make sure that our skills are all diverse, and we are able to support one another as well. So yeah, that's how I make sure that that the skills are among my team is pretty well balanced, and also apply some bit of fine tuning here and there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's an evolving space as well, obviously, right? Building products. So, you touched on it a little bit about juggling the skills and upskilling people. Like, as your responsibility goes, how do you get the balance right between, I guess, expecting too much of developers, i.e., right, constantly being upskilled and learning new things, and then just actually bringing new people into the team, as far as staffing those projects, or upskilling, how do you make that call? Or is it kind of, you're given a budget, this is what it is, and that's
Yes.
that? How does that dynamic work?
So how we usually play out is during our PI planning, there's product increment planning for those who are not familiar with safe agile way of product development. So we look far ahead in the next 3 months of the outputs that we require for a given product, or how far along we want to go in terms of an MVP, or maybe a proof of concept. So, once we have all that planned out, and during our team PI planning, and then I'll be able to say, okay, this is the area where I think we lack in terms of expertise, various kind of skills, and then ask if someone is willing to, I think, for example, especially with the test guys, sometimes because we recruit quite a lot of, testers, and what usually happens is, once they're on board, and they obviously have to know the system and the product, and we tend to I do encourage the lead testers or the old guys that's been there for a while to if they will be able to contribute the expertise and help the new team members. And also I think I tend to go with it in a kind of voluntary way. Yeah, because voluntarily, and I'm glad I have a very good team. My team members, they are very top-notch guys, and which makes everything pretty easy, and we all get along very well. So once I feel like I need somebody to step up and volunteer, there's always a hand that goes up to volunteer. So I take that approach in the first place, try to get someone to volunteer. And when we don't have, if for example we don't have anyone with a particular skill set, the next thing I do is reach out to the main manager. I'm like, is there anywhere we could get someone either from a different team or from outside the organization? So it's obviously it's just a means of involving everyone in the organization, from the architect guys, the developers, sometimes, to see if we can either bring somebody from a team or recruit someone from, from outside.
Right. And what's kind of, you talked about the conversations that you had with other people in your role, other product owners. I appreciate that maybe the big learn was that everyone had a different role, and I think that's part of the issue, right? This is something about overcoming challenges. From obviously we talked about the staff, but you're part of the team as well and getting that mix right. So what would be some of the kind of not frustrations, but like some of the, I guess, insights into those conversations and the shared challenges with the other product owners? What were some of the common themes that you were discussing about, getting things delivered?
So there are some of the comments, because obviously we, Claro is, is a pharmaceutical tech company, and it's a highly, highly regulated company. So, one of the stuff we talked about was who is responsible for making sure that all the documentation so when we have to release the product to prod, we'll have to release the product to the end user. We have to go through a litany of documentation, to make sure that we all followed all the SOPs and all the regulatory practice and everything. And what we find out, what we're talking amongst ourselves is that some of us don't even do that at all. The PDM does that, and some of us, we're like, okay, the system that we are following is pretty much mundane, and there's no clear guidance, which does happen in big organizations. So we have to present to the management like, okay, this is what we have discovered among ourselves. This is the best way that we think as product owners we should go about it. So in terms of the, what's it called, well, in terms of the, what's it called again? I'm just kind of lost now, forgetting about it. In terms of the documentary and documenting the regulatory protocol and steps that we have to take, So we have to have it clear. But then again, though, we kind of, because the organization is massive. We have like branches of different teams from different arts. So art is basically agile release train. So my organization, we have like about 2 different arts, and each art, they're on a different pathway. But now we have a new system that we developed, so all the arts are coming together. So that's the challenge now that the product owners are having. The product owner from different arts, they're like, okay, because myself and some other guys are already in the new art. So the guys coming from the old one, they're asking, okay, how do you guys do this and how do you guys do that? So that's actually one of the main reasons why we kind of started our meeting to share ideas and see how we can streamline our efforts. So and it's an ongoing process, and so we'll be able to have a lot more linearity, more common approach to the way we as product owners, carry out our duties. And I mean, the thing with being a product owner is, with product owner, the task is usually, kind of well laid out in terms of, backlog management, grooming, stakeholders analysis and stuff. But my God, it is way more than that. Is sometimes you will be in a hot seat, and you're gonna have to think as a PDM. You're gonna have to think as a UX guy. You're gonna have to just learn to know how to process yourself when things when things go wrong, and they do go wrong. And sometimes the men, like the PDM, the UX guy or the architect guy, sometimes they will be in a different meeting or they will be away, and we need the resolution like ASAP. then you're gonna have to make sure that you're able to make a call. It's gonna be a judgment. So yeah, it is a very multi faceted role. Yeah,
absolutely. So I guess back onto like some people conversations. So we talked about obviously that balance of getting the right people plus upskilling to fulfill projects. Well, obviously, assuming you've got the right mix nailed, which I'm sure will happen one day. But how have you learned over through your experience to get simply put, how do you get the best out of people? Curious to see whether that's changed over your career, your approach to that.
How to get the best out of people? I get, getting the best out of people is making sure that that as a product owner, that I am able to, identify. So I think I'll probably start from the beginning. Once we have a clear guidance from the from the senior leadership on what the stakeholders have identified or what the stakeholders want in a product, then we're going to have to plan how to do that. So it's either we take an existing product and build on it, or we build an entire new product.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to make sure that you're not going to overload the team, and make sure that you tap their skills to see the products succeed, is to get a complete picture of what we are building, and then look into the team, and then access their skills, in terms of domain knowledge. Like I said earlier, some folks, they are very, very super familiar with a particular product, and they could change codes with their eye closed and with a hand tied behind their back. They could do all sorts of things, and some guys, will probably struggle, and some folks, just don't know. So, once we have that, clear visibility of what we're going to be, then the next step is make sure that the tasks have been divided accordingly, and we do that usually during the planning. Yeah, so during planning, sprint planning, because you have to make sure the front end guys are well catered for, the back end, the testers, and everybody has, the workflow is evenly, not, you can't get evenly distributed, but it is distributed to a fine degree. And so that's the best way to make sure that the skills are all being catered for. And along the way, if I identify that we might need some extra skills, then we'll have to look into either getting someone from a different team, or reaching out to recruitment guys to see if they can help us fill the gaps. But again, the task distribution is a perfect way to make sure that that the team, their skills and expertise are being utilized to the full.
Yeah. With I guess delivery question kind of tied into this as well, but I know we've got people who've signed up for the event from agile backgrounds. I know people will have perhaps different deployment methods. What impact do you think that has on getting the best out of people as well? Depending on which methodology people want to use, especially within an engineering team.
So, sorry, I think I must have missed the question. Are you talking about in terms of agile and waterfall? Yeah.
I guess the choice of deployment, right? Whether you're the methodology and how you deliver a project, right?
Yeah.
Not specifically what do you think is best, but how closely do you think that, how much do you consider the way that you deliver a product or a project using agile, waterfall, etc., and how much does that have on getting the best out of people? Do you feel that they're closely aligned?
So I mean, in terms of getting the best out of people using those a particular methodology. So when I used to work for the NHS, the team I was with, we have both, both waterfall and agile methodology, and I think in terms of both, agile gives you the luxury, this might be a bit objective though, but agile gives you the luxury of getting some things done when you have a specific skill set, and then leaving the rest for later. Say for example, we are working on a very complex system for some pharmaceutical companies right now, and there are some things that we need to implement into the application, but obviously we don't have the skill set to do that. So put that in backlog somewhere, in a future backlog. When we have a complete team, or when we can be able to like borrow someone for a different team, then yeah, we can do that. So that's the luxury that that Agile can afford to an organization. With other methods like waterfalls, I think it could, once you set your timeline, and you have sufficient team to get started, and everything's being worked on in tandem. So I think where those converge in terms of getting the best out of people, in my experience, I would say that using the agile methodology does yield the best. But then again, it depends actually. It does yield, because you can do things that you can flex your team however you want, in terms of deadline, in terms of what you want to build, in terms of which particular skill set that you have at the moment. So you can it's like a Lego kind of way of doing things. So you tend to get more from the team. So if you have a team that the skill set isn't balanced, you can easily push someone from the backlog, and somebody can be doing something. Compared to other methodology where everything has to be done at once, and if the front end guys are waiting for the back end guys to get something done, and there's nothing for them to do, it's just gonna have. Right. So sometimes it kind of creates some kind of imbalance, and that kind of sometimes a waste of resources, and so yeah.
Yeah, so you do think it does impact them, I suppose, right? It does impact the personnel, but it's not a focus area from your perspective on getting the most out of people, right?
No, not at all. No, not at all. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so interesting conversation there. So I think to move on to another question we've got. So curious if you could elaborate on some of the major technical challenges that have sort of aroused during a project. You don't have to give specifics.
Yeah.
But, how do you address these and learn from them? If you can share some lived experiences there.
Oh man, technical hurdles, they are a pain. I mean, no matter how succinctly we plan a project, no matter how much we put time and effort to identify everything that should go wrong, there's always something that goes wrong. I mean like just right now we are dealing with pretty difficult scenario that has delayed us for I think it must have cost us maybe about 4 or 5 weeks worth of progress. But obviously, being agile, we can easily move things around. But we should have that particular part of the product we're developing. The progress that we've made has been stymied quite a lot. Because of technical hurdles. So I think the best way to actually overcome technical hurdles is to not have it in the first place. But that sounds a little bit like a weird comment, but that contradicts what I said earlier. Regardless of how much you plan, put time and effort, try to make sure, so for example, during the PI planning, you make sure that the PDM obviously, speaks to the stakeholders, like mostly, for example, an external stakeholders, and they get all the requirements. And and this is what the PDM wants. The architect guy must make sure that they have all planned out, and we have the UX guy, they have to be there to make sure that the interface kind of mirrors the company kind of the company way of presenting their products, to either the public or to the stakeholders. And then you're gonna have to make sure, I have to make sure that obviously that the dependencies on other team is something that we have already mapped out. So which team is depending on my team to get some stuff done, and vice versa. So I have to make sure that everything, has been accounted for. And so we thought, all this happened, we've everything mapped out, we've done the log analysis, everything, everyone has been accounted for. Until we actually start the product, start development, and then we'll find out that, okay, what A said to B was slightly different from what, C said to A, and okay, where does D coming from? Where, so it creates, a bottleneck, then we're gonna have to start to scramble and then start having meetings upon meetings, like the time that the developers, should spend, actually doing some dev work, we spend that on meetings trying to clarify a particular ask, or to clarify, something that should have been ready, an API that should have been ready isn't ready, or the API has returns a different thing than what was initially, identify. So it can be, technical hurdles, there have been, but the way to actually deal with it is, look back what happened and try, identify what has gone wrong. And most times it's just that communication is always an issue. Like someone has described something and and somebody understood it differently, or someone delayed before they were able to highlight a particular risk to a team that depends on them. So it's always very, very very difficult situation to be in. And then looking back, other things that kind of technical debt as well, it piles up until until the point where is the team gets overwhelmed, because they're gonna have to leave some other work to deal with tech debt, And looking back, I think one of the ways that I dealt with it previously is unforeseen dependencies. Again, this is where pretty much the experience comes through. Like, okay, so we are working on it. This was I think early this year. We were working on a particular system, and because my background is also in data and AI, so I was looking through, and I kind of identified that there is no way that the end users will be able to analyze the data that's being collected. Like, okay, they want to know who took part, where they took part, their age, what device they use. I mean, that was there's no way. And it turns out that that previously, we had another product that's created an issue down the line. So I had to go back to the team, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to find a way to mitigate this stuff before it becomes an unmitigated disaster. Because definitely the end users are gonna come back to say, hey, we can't find out how many people attended the study a day or so ago. So having that foresight, to understand what will go wrong, what might go wrong, does help a lot. And I think it comes with the experience,
Right.
and also domain knowledge as well. I think yesterday we had a meeting yesterday about an MRI system that we are developing, and then I'm like, okay, also just like I went to medical school, so I was looking at the MRI images. I'm like, okay, I'm like thinking to myself, if I am a doctor and I want to see a particular view of this MRI, how can I do it? And that dawned on me. So I asked the question. I'm like, okay, I asked the question. I'm like, okay, how can we make sure that we can do this? So if I want to see a topography of an MRI image, how do I do that? If I want to see like a particular site, how? Yeah, and that's like, okay, this is something that we need to plan and because although it might sound like, I mean, for me though, I want whoever it is that's using the products like make their life a lot easier. Obviously, they probably won't bother in terms of okay, it's something it's not a big deal because they could click and get the photo that they need. But if you want to make something easy to use and simple to use, I would prefer to like click something and just one click, that cut down the time you spend trying to identify a cancellation from an image to actually spending time with patients. So yeah, it's all a combination of stuff, combination of knowledge, foresight, thoughtful planning, adaptability, collaboration. Yeah, goes a long way into keeping technical hurdles at the bay.
Yeah, absolutely interesting. So, I think some of the points you're addressing about like how, like I say, a lot of experience, kind of having foresight on what kind of can go wrong, will go wrong, and being comfortable with that. But all that feels like it's communication, right, as well. Like not just internally, but I guess externally as well to any other stakeholders. So with regards to communication and being effective and being consistent with your communication, like can you share kind of like your strategy or tools or anything that you do to try and be effective and as consistent as you can with communicating effectively?
So, I mean, for communicating effectively, for me is there's something in me that I use at work. I don't have a name for it, but it's like whatever I feel that a team, because sometimes the dev guys, they know a lot more than most people think, but they don't speak out as much, because all they want to do is code, and they don't speak out as more. And if you really want to find an issue, that you must have missed or you thought, okay, so it's something that is benign, like just you speak to them, and yeah, and they'll be like, yeah, I think this is not gonna work out the way we think it's gonna work out because of so and so. And and by the time you kind of think about it, you'll be like, okay, we haven't made this very clear to a particular stakeholder, or we haven't provided them with a specific knowledge or skills that they need. Because sometimes, there's a saying that humans, we are what how does that saying go? Creatures of comfort or something like that.
Yeah. Creatures of
Yes.
comfort, yeah.
So yeah, and so like during the stand-up, actually, stand-up is always the best, one of the best way to figure out, what it's doing and how to improve. Is that communication during stand-up goes a long way, and also during grooming. Yeah, during grooming is another key place to like understand what's going on. Always write things down. For me, I am a prolific note taker. I take notes all the time because sometimes you think something's gonna stick, but it doesn't stick, and then you're just gonna forget. So yeah, just listening, and and sometimes you can tell that a developer is struggling just message, or if you're in the same office, just ask if there's any issue. I think that's that kind of relationship between a PO and a developer is pretty one of the best ways to like find out how things are developing, how the product is going. And again, communication plan as well. I use communication plan. So for example, once the developer said to me that okay, they are having an issue because the direction that the architect gave, which depends on a different team. Once he built the code for that, the system is returning something entirely different. But then the team that should, am I making it complex? I'm not sure. Okay, so the direction for the architect, right? Which means that my team, the developer has to build something to return a particular notification, right?
Right.
But that also depends on another team to build their own side of, code that my team system will talk to that system to produce it. But then it wasn't working as intended. But then, we find that the architect and the other teams, I mean, the guidance is, is totally out of balance. So, we have, what I did is create a kind of a channel on Teams, bring everyone together, to like trash out exactly. And yeah, after like hundreds of messages, we just find out that we're not even going anywhere because it's not clear at all. So I'm like, okay, is it that the directive from the architect isn't clear enough, or that we are assuming this is what the architect, because people do assume quite a lot though, which does happen quite a lot in this field of work. So yeah, from that team channel, I was able to like identify what's actually going on. So I had to reach out to the architect. I'm like, okay, we need to find a way to have this resolved. So, and then we have to have another meeting where everyone was involved and everyone was free to ask a question. And yeah, we were able to make progress after about 5 weeks. It was just quite recently that we were able to like, everybody was like, oh my gosh. So yeah.
Do you think that there's like, to talk about communication channels, do you think that like to talk about tools, obviously you mentioned Teams, there's a lot of different means to communicate. And I think that people kind of subconsciously think in their mind, right, that's an important one because it's on email, and that's maybe not important. So is that like, it's such a small thing, but is that actually a challenge that you do end up running into as far as, communicating effectively?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I just, don't know an exact way to put it though, but in terms of, sometimes we get overloaded with communication as well. It's coming from Teams, it's coming from emails, it's coming from, we have the independent, what's it called, the team channel. It comes from the team channels, and it comes from the team direct message. Sometimes, you just don't even know how to begin, how to address, particular stuff. And again, this is quite prevalent with massive companies like mine. Things do change on a whim. Like things do change, and we do struggle to like keep up. And I think sometimes though, like what I did earlier was use a spreadsheet, to like have a status update, to like have things updated. But sometimes, even the amount of information that flows through, it gets overwhelmed actually, right. And yeah, it can easily miss to update something. And again, people get very busy. Sometimes they don't even read it, and they will ask you a question, and you'll be like, "Okay, have you seen the latest status?" So yeah, it's that communication aspect is it is a challenge, especially in big. So for example, now my team, we are working on something for the past few weeks, and then recently just realized that, okay, whatever they've worked, we have our main work engine. So whenever the guys that the team that manages the work engine, whenever they make a change, we also have to make a change. Otherwise, things won't work. We didn't know that. We didn't know that, and yeah, and we have to like say to them, okay, we're gonna have to create a channel where if you guys make any changes, just let us know, because if you leave it too late, it's gonna cost about 2-3 days of work to to get things updated. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just communication, having a communication plan, having regular meetings, which can be overkill sometimes, but having regular meetings, status report. Oh, I'll tell you the story. Like a couple of months ago, we were working on the system, and something broke on the system, and oh my God, all hell let loose. So one of the CEO from the farm spoke to my CEO, and my CEO, obviously, he was on. They were all on fire. The people that I've never met before, I don't even know they work for that company, but they're so much higher level. Everyone was like messaging me as a PO to like have this issue sorted, because when CEOs are involved, oh my God, I'm like, oh God, so where do I even begin? A lot of things we are like crumbling, folks, weren't able to access data, and it was like life-changing. So I was in a hot seat. So what should I do? So I quickly created a spreadsheet to track the issues, and they were coming from everywhere. Things were failing terribly. But I was able to use a spreadsheet, like create some kind of an update for the development status, who is working on each status, what is causing the issues, and when will they be fixed. And then also my PDM wasn't around. My lead manager wasn't in, and I have to like think on my feet. I mean, it's situations like this kind of make you feel like being a PO doesn't actually stop at being a PO. Sometimes things will go like haywire, and you will be left to do the thinking and provide the solution, and just anyhow and we have guys working like 16 hours 17 hours a day just try to solve that, and it was manic. So just one of those things. Yes, status report, like the CEO said to me that they want a status update every hour. Like every hour. I mean, so I use the status report, it goes a long way in providing that information. This, kind of a more providing with visibility on how it's gonna be solved. Again, that also flows I mean, everything I've spoken about, communication, communication plan, regular meetings, status report. They're all tied with having a clear documentation, because you're gonna have to have a documentation that that maintains clear and up-to-date plans and issues and responsibilities, and and just at the end of the day to provide you an accessible way of having a reliable and credible source of information to like
it's
deal with issues.
Interesting, because it's like it's. So I guess the final question might pull all this together, actually. So like a lot of people obviously signed up for the event and are obviously interested in, overcoming challenges as a PO, right? So a lot of those people, it's probably because they're having challenges as a PO, right? And it's like, it can be overwhelming at times.
Yeah.
So what's your advice for those people? Because it's about solving problems, right, and thinking on your feet. But what would your advice be to people who, have engaged with this event and just want some simple, clear advice on the best way to overcome challenges? What would be that simple advice be?
Clear advice is ask questions. The testers, they know the product way more than you do. Like the testers are the guys to go to. They know the product system. If you are struggling with anything in terms of understanding, the product, they are the ones to go to. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. When I first started being working as a PO, I'm a senior product owner, and I'm like, yeah, I should know everything. Like, I mean, I don't have to ask anyone any question. I'm just, because all that expectation is laid on you, and you will feel like that going to ask somebody a question because you expected to know the whole thing. And then I find it a little bit. It was difficult at first, and then when I go to meetings and folks are asking questions, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm not the only one who's actually struggling here. So I reached out to other people. He was the company longer than I've been. Yeah, and he was also facing some challenges, and and I realized that by asking questions, it does go a long way. Just ask questions, and there are quite a lot of articles and help stuff out there online. Just Google them, and if there's somebody in your network, say for example, if you work for a large company where there are other teams and stuff, POs, yeah, just ask those questions. Like, I mean, I've been with Clario for like nearly a year and a half, and it was just recently this week or so, end of last week, we started this what's it called, this PO meetings, and yeah, you might think that somebody knows better than you do, or people are a lot more knowledgeable, but no, you're not. Yeah, you find out quickly that everyone has burning issues, burning questions, reservations. So yeah, I think that's, and also yeah, one more thing I think helped me pretty much when I first started is feedbacks. Yeah, so like after. Mostly after the product refinement. Yeah, sometimes after the PI planning. Yeah, I ask folks for feedback. I'm like, okay, how do you think that I did today? Do you use a story that I wrote? Was it clear enough? I mean, ask, get feedbacks, and people will always give you feedback. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that wraps it up nicely for me. I mean, things I've learned, it's just, when you're working on such complex things, it's the simplicity of the communication, asking questions, being transparent are the things that people overlook, right? And I think there's an art to keeping things simple, dropping the ego, being comfortable asking questions when you don't know it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah, I know, because I worked in NHS, and I worked in different products. I was a director of application hospital before, and then when I went to Clario, I'm like, okay, I think I know quite a lot. But yeah, and different firms, the PO role is is basically different. Some firms, you were expected to to also be the you have some elements of product management, product manager, baked in as well. So yeah, it's all about learning, asking questions. Like, I never stop learning. Like, I'm always on LinkedIn, not always, but yeah, LinkedIn learning. Looking at what's out there in terms of improving my knowledge, being a PO, helping my team, because at the end of the day, we have a product, to deliver. And what's the best way for me to help my team build a product that that hits the mark each time. So yeah, it just doesn't stop. Yeah, I think asking questions. Yeah, it's just And also, I think my advice is there's always someone in a company, or maybe more than one person who will be like some kind of a mentor. Find a mentor. Yeah. Like my manager, he's my mentor, like he's so knowledgeable, and I'm gonna have him as a manager actually, whenever I need any, and whenever there's something that I need to know, just message him and learn from him. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much for the time. I'll finish the recording there, and appreciate everyone's understanding about the challenges that we had with the recording. Hopefully you enjoy this conversation, and I think you said that if anyone does have any questions, email or drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Just message or add the comments to the video. I'll definitely respond. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.